I think it's important to customize the look and feel of Visual Studio Code or whatever IDE you happen to be using, your themes and your fonts. But I also think it's important to customize the layout, what windows and menus you generally have open and available to you. On screen here, I've got a naked installation of Visual Studio Code. I've installed a few of my thematic changes to it that I like. But otherwise, this is how it comes out of the box pre-configured. And frankly, if you ask me, this is a little bit busy. Even if I close this welcome page that they open for me, this just feels like a busy editor, and it's supposed to be a really simple, clean editor. As you might know, Visual Studio or NetBeans or Eclipse, editors like that, IDEs like that, are incredibly crowded and incredibly busy because of all the features they offer. One of the advantages of something like Visual Studio Code is how it should be simple and cleaner. So I want to show you how I would set up Visual Studio Code. It gets really ugly once you start actually working on a project. You can see here I've got, I've just got this folder open on the left-hand side in my Explorer, and I've got these different tabs up here that represent the different files that I have open in my editor. I've got over here on the right-hand side this little mini map. I've got the list of the files over here as well as up here inside of this breadcrumb trail, as they call it. I've got a menu on the left, a menu on the top. I've got status bars on the bottom. There's a lot going on, right? So let's clean it up a little bit, or at least that's what I would like to do, is clean it up a little bit. The first thing I like to do is close some of these things inside of the Explorer. I don't feel the need to show my open editors, and I don't feel the need to show my outline, and I don't feel the need to show NPM scripts. What I like to show is just the Explorer, the File Explorer over here in this window. And on top of that, I like to close it with Control B. I think that's a really popular and important key that you should learn. Control B. You see I Control B, it flies that out, closes it, shuts it up, opens it. You're going to want to keep this hidden most of the time. If you ask me, give your screen real estate to your code, not to a list of files that you're working on. You can already see them again in multiple different places up here, so why have it open all the time? On top of that, I also like to get rid of this mini map over here. I don't think this is useful at all. I think you'll find that you rarely use it, and if your code file is long enough to require navigating with a mini map, I'm going to say that maybe you need to think about separating your code into multiple different files. In order to do that, we're going to open the command palette, Control-Shift-P, and I am going to toggle the minimap. You can search for minimap to find this option. There it is, View Toggle Minimap, and I'm just going to turn it right off. Hey, you want it on, leave it on. You're not going to hurt my feelings, but this is what I would do. I would turn that off. I would use Control-B to hide the Explorer window most of the time. I actually also would get rid of this breadcrumbs up here. I don't use them. I don't think they're especially helpful, and they are toggleable with breadcrumbs. If you search for that inside of your Control-Shift-P window, View Toggle Breadcrumbs, boom, gone. Get rid of them. Don't need them if you ask me. Another interesting thing that I like to do is you notice that when you hit Control-B to open or close the Explorer, your code shifts around and bounces around. Maybe that's fine, and a lot of people expect the Explorer to be on the left. That's just kind of the nature of how we've been taught to use different programs. But I kind of like it on the right for this exact reason. I don't want my code to jump around every time I open and close it. So what you can do, Control-Shift-B, and if you look up sidebar, this is move or toggle sidebar position. So they call this whole panel here the sidebar. When I click toggle sidebar position, now it's on the right. And what happens as I open and close it, my code stays stable. It's just over there on the right-hand side, along with those other icons that launch the different quick things that I might want to use. So this is how I like to set up my Visual Studio Code Explorer. Most of the other options and features here can be turned on and turned off as well. But there's one more thing that I'd like to show you. I use the settings, Control, comma, or Command, comma, to open up the settings, and I like to use the settings this way. Just hit that button, search for the setting that I want to find by typing it into the search menu. But there is an alternative option for your settings. If you search for default settings here, you can find the Workbench Settings Editor. Let's find it. Here it is, Workbench Settings Editor. And I have a choice between the UI or JSON. If I switch it to JSON and close this up, now when I hit Control, comma, I don't get that big UI window with all the different things that I can search for. I get a simple JSON document that describes my settings. And one of the things that's cool about this JSON document, you notice it's very short. It's only 8 different settings. It's only showing the settings that I've chosen, that I have overridden inside of my Visual Studio Code Explorer. So I don't have to navigate through every single setting option that's available in Visual Studio Code when I'm looking at this file, settings.json. I can just add and update the settings that I want here. Some people prefer this way, particularly if you know the settings already. You can cut and paste settings that you want to add into Visual Studio Code from a website or from somewhere else and put them into this JSON very easily. So this is obviously a nice way to do it. If you want to switch it back, just erase this line here, workbench.settings.editor. Get rid of the comma up top. I will save, close the JSON document, hit Control comma, and I'm back into the user interface for my settings. So those are a few configuration options that I would recommend you take a look at for your Visual Studio Code editor. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.